Good morning, folks. Pretty good Wednesday morning. Matthew, I'm at Pompano Airport right now, and my oldest son Matthew is flying right now. He's working on getting his private pilot's license. He started that up at Norwich University up in Vermont, where he's in the Corps Cadets. Apparently I dropped him on his head when he was younger because he wants to fly for the Marine Corps. But obviously Norwich and every university in Vermont is closed for the rest of the year, but hopefully he gets back up there. And then just dropped off my other son, my middle son, John Peter, Simple Jack. Just dropped him off at the same flight school, and he's going to go for his first flight today. He's 15, and you need to be 16 to actually solo the airplane, but he's going to do everything all the way up until soloing. So very, very proud of my two boys. And Jack is trying as hard as he can. He's a freshman in high school. He wants to go to the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis. So it's going to be pretty cool for these two boys to essentially be going through civilian flight school together right now, and then maybe someday out in the fleet, maybe dogfighting each other as a Navy and Marine pilot. Speaking about Navy and Marines, woke up to the tweet from the president this morning about, first of all, man, shooting down Iranian patrol boats. When I was in the Gulf on Lincoln and the Kitty Hawk, I almost shot down an Iranian helicopter that wouldn't deviate course and was flying right at Mother, and it was absolute insanity. Shameless plug, it's actually detailed in my book, but quick brief on this. I wanted to go flying, man. When you're a naval aviator on a ship, there's not a lot of room, right? We're not a bunch of Air Force pilots that have one job, Air Force pilot. As a Navy and Marine officer, you're the maintenance officer, the quality assurance officer, the voting rights officer, and 9 other jobs. And flying is like down here on the list of things to do. And I'll never forget this day because I wanted to go flying, man. I was getting my ass kicked by paperwork, and I'm like, I want to go flying. And sitting on the flight deck, if you ever see like an F-18 or a fighter aircraft, well, this one won't have it, but a fighter aircraft up close, it has a bunch of what we call dimples on it, like different parts on the skin that have more or less are radar detectors or fuzz busters, right? So you get swept by an enemy radar, just kind of like cruising down I-95 hauling ass. You're going to get different tones that are associated with different types of radar. So on the flight deck, there's a dude that walks around with a box that simulates a radar, and he shoots, so to speak. He points that box at the aircraft and squeezes a trigger, and it should interrogate the aircraft and make sure you're squawking that right code for the day. So on this day, and you're supposed to get a little indication in the cockpit that your system's working. Well, at that point, I got a reply in the cockpit that said, "Hey man, this thing ain't working," and he had a confused look on his face. The kid on the flight deck, he's like, "Hey, it's giving me a bad signal." And in the cockpit, I'm like, "Son of a bitch, I need to go flying. This is miserable." It's amazing that your life is that bad. You're looking forward to doing a combat mission over Iraq. So I kind of gave him that thumbs up, like, "Yeah, everything's fine in the cockpit, dude. Your thing's busted." Because I knew if I got airborne, on the flight deck for these type of events, we have spares. So I knew my buddy sitting over there would get launched. So here's what happens is I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm good." And the guy's like, "All right." So I get airborne, and as soon as I get airborne, kind of the Secret Service agent for the battle group called Red Crown, Aegis class cruiser, sitting there kind of like the hockey goalie, man, going to and from Iraq. And as soon as I got airborne and they interrogated my radar, they're like, "Nah, dude, you're not going in the box, right? You're not going in the box over Iraq, and you go to the penalty box, actually," which was fantastic. You know what the penalty box was? I had to go overhead Mother, the USS Kitty Hawk. I went up about 40,000 feet, took my mask off, hanging on the blades, just doing a big lazy circle overhead the aircraft carrier. Beautiful day, man. Beautiful visibility. You can see it's a lake, man. At the top of this thing, there's your little rowboat. There's Oman, there's Kuwait, there's UAE, there's Iraq, there's Iran. You can see mountains all the way. You can see snow on the mountains all the way past in Iran. Beautiful day. I'm just droning a big circle in the sky because I had to wait until all the folks from my mission came back and we're going to recover back aboard the Kitty Hawk. So I was getting a free hour and a half of flight time, just literally droning a circle in the sky. Little did I know it was going to happen. So all of a sudden, the boat comes up and says, "Hey, Hobo, 401 or Trojan 11, whatever my call sign was that day. I think it was Trojan or no, Shield 11. We need you to investigate a contact that just got airborne out of Bouchier." Now, Bouchier is a joint use civilian and Navy field. So I'm like, okay. So they're like, "Hey, man, contact just got airborne out of Bouchier and it's heading towards Mother. It's heading towards the aircraft carrier." I'm like, okay, let's put the mask back on and get back to being a little serious here. So they gave me a steer, they gave me a heading and an altitude. They're like, "Hey man, this guy is airborne, he's heading for the aircraft carrier. We need you to go investigate." So I'm game time. So start descending downhill. This guy's at really low altitude. I'm looking now as you descend in altitude towards the Persian Gulf itself. Man, it is a soup bowl. You want to talk about getting vertigo? The horizon, it's just blue gray. There's no horizon. You don't know up from down. So I'm down here at low altitude. I'm hauling ass, man. I'm doing it supersonic at least, 1,000 miles an hour plus, trying to figure this out. They're like, "Hey, man," and we're trying to talk to this guy on the radio. He's not deviating his course. He's coming right for the ship. So I am hauling ass. And finally, I lock this thing up. It's doing all of 100 miles an hour on my radar. So I'm like, what the? So I lock this guy up. I'm like the dog on the kitchen floor, man, spinning around. I had to do like three pulling G's at about 1,000 feet, couple hundred feet, pulling G's, about 7.5 G's to try and bleed off the airspeed and get slow. And finally, it's an Iranian helicopter. I'll never forget this, man. I see it. Iranian helicopter, and my slowest I can get is maybe, before I'm falling out of the sky here, I got drop tanks, I got weapons, maybe 150. I put down my flaps. I go past this thing as slow as I can, and I'll never forget. I look over, and it's a big Iranian helicopter with one dude and a big crate in the back. And I'm like, okay, and keep going right past him because I'm hauling ass, and I peel back up and behind him over the radio. Dude's not deviating course. He's heading, at this point, maybe now we're like 10 miles from the aircraft carrier. And this dude ain't changing his course. I'm like, "Hey man, deviate." So now I pull all the way back, get about a mile behind this helicopter, and I lock him up with a heat-seeking missile. Screaming tone in my head said, "Wah," and that's exactly what it sounds like. So I tell the boat, "Hey man, single pilot, Iranian flag on the side, big crate in the back, and he's 10 miles from Mother. Say intentions," meaning, what do you want me to do with this guy? Stand by. Now, if you don't know aviation or military speak, especially at that point in time, stand by meant, we don't know what the fuck's going on, dude. And I could tell on the other end there was a lot of talking and a lot of people with higher pay grades than me were trying to figure out what to do. Long silence, and I'm kind of doing an S-turn here behind this guy, trying to I'm keeping him locked up, screaming tone in my headset. Now he's at about 5 miles. There's the ship. I can see the aircraft carrier. Now my mind's going a mile a minute. I'm like, so, you're the pilot in command of the aircraft. You got these gold wings on your chest. I was armed up, and I'm like, okay, man, this is Shield 11, say intentions. What are we doing here, folks? And they came up and they said escort. And I'm like, not the kind that, you meet out in Miami, like just hang out and escort the guy. I'm like, so at this point, never forget this either, man. I reach over and I put the master arm on. So this guy is literally one trigger pull, one squeeze of my finger from being taken out of the gene pool. So now, as this guy's at about 1 mile to 2 miles from the ship, I'm like, okay, this is fantastic. Now I'm going back a little further behind the guy because I'm like, do I want to see the flash? Do I want to see the explosion? breaking news: Lieutenant Buckley responsible for the deaths of 5,000 sailors and Marines in this, first sinking of an aircraft carrier, since the Battle of Midway or something like that. All firing through my head. Just absolute insanity. I'll never forget, this guy gets on top of the aircraft carrier. I don't think I closed my eyes, but I'm just like, and then he keeps going. Just keeps going. I'm like, what the and then he flies for like about another 10 miles and then lands on an oil platform. Just puts it down on an oil platform. And I'm like, mask off, pulled out a Lucky Strike cigarette, and in the cockpit, I'm like, okay. That guy, either he did or didn't know how close he came to being taken out of the gene pool, and more importantly, I mean, just how close we came to, my God, like an international or war, folks. But I had to, I kind of used my situational awareness. I mean, what was going on at the time, the intelligence brief I had beforehand. Remember, folks, as a student of the 80s, growing up in the 80s, man, I remember the USS Vincennes. The USS, we've been at war with Iran forever, folks. Don't fool yourself. The USS Vincennes was an Aegis-class cruiser who was engaged in a surface battle with a bunch of Iranian gunboats. So the Vincennes was, engaged in battle, and then all of a sudden, a contact got airborne out of Bouchier, coming right for this, the USS Vincennes. Chain of errors. You can read about it, Google it online. It's a tragedy, man, because what happened? The skipper of the USS Vincennes, who's in a gunboat battle, you're a surface warfare officer, man. It doesn't get any more Top Gun or surface gun than being in a gunboat battle. And now you have an unknown contact that just got launched out of a joint use military field coming at you. It ain't answering over the radio. It's actually starting to descend now, coming right for you. What do? They smoke it. The USS Vincennes shot down a civilian airliner. A lot of people don't know naval history. Absolute horror, man. Shoot down a civilian airliner. Now, what do? The skipper of the USS Vincennes got a medal. Read about it. Obviously it was 80s and Reagan and all sorts of absolute horror chain of events. Civilian airliner that was going from Lake Bouchier across the Gulf on its normal flight path and was descending to go land in fucking Oman or wherever it was. Hundreds of people vaporized, or dead bodies floating in the Gulf. So that was going through my mind as I'm watching this helo, man. But I had to pull it all together, all my situational awareness, and go, no, today ain't the day, man. Had I shot him down, there's a fine line in fighter aviation between zero and hero. Shot that guy down, would have been a big freaking zero. So I bring that up because it flashed back as soon as I woke up today. We didn't have Twitter back in the 80s or the 90s or before taking off that day on board Kitty Hawk. But at the end of the day, waking up this morning and see the president's tweet about, hey man, I've ordered my Navy commanders to shoot down Iranian patrol boats. You don't shoot down boats, man. I get it. But interesting times we live in, man. And I hope there's no cynic in me, maybe, who the day after oil goes to the lowest price ever in the history of God's green earth, if you were the commander-in-chief, how would you get oil to pop in the blink of an eye? Am I that cynical now? I hope not. Fully support the president and his policies, but let's just hope that. Man, I was on a call this morning and people were like, "Hey, man, so how do you get oil to pop if you're Donald Trump and it's destroying your economy?" It can't be that bad, right? I mean, we needed to beat the shit out of Iran a long time ago. But anyway, to the men and women on the tip of the spear out in the Gulf, please be safe. God bless you all, and the United States of America supports you folks, and come home safe. Okay? God bless. I'll talk to you guys later.